12 Days Living in Hell. September 1916. Verdun. Verdun is a simple 6-letter word that today is a symbol and a byword for French resistance. However, in August 1916, it was a word that few French soldiers would want to hear as their new posting. Verdun was still at this stage the epicentre of some of the most ferocious and bitter fighting, and it struck fear even into some of the most seasoned soldiers. The Battle of Verdun had been raging since the 21st of February 1916 and was already by August one of the longest, bloodiest battles fought by the French army. The losses on both sides were horrific, with hundreds of thousands of French and German casualties, over 53 million shells fired, and 9 villages destroyed and wiped off the face of the earth. But what did these soldiers go through? What was it like to be at Verdun? To understand that, we need to follow 2 men. These 2 men are 2 soldiers from the 315 Regiment, or as they would say in French, the 315e Régiment d'Infanterie. The first soldier was Hervé Lambert, a farmer from Cannes, born on the 15th of December 1894. The second, Jules Destrigneville, born on the 23rd of June 1889. The 315 arrived on the 30th of August 1916, after completing a short rest period. The regiment arrived in the late afternoon, travelling up the now famous Voie Sacrée, the single road which was the single artery for supplying the war machine in Verdun. From that point, the regiment was then quickly moved into the large underground city that was La Citadel de Verdun, where the damp, stale air would seem luxury compared to what was awaiting them on the battlefield, high above the River Meuse. The destination for the regiment was the right bank. To be precise, near the Ouvrage de Froidterre. It's from this fort that Hervé Lambert wrote for the first time. It is on top of a box of grenades that I'm writing a few lines to show that my health is good. We're in the middle of a daily bombardment. The artillery is largely of large calibre shells. It goes on non-stop, and the Boche are hardly responding. I do not know how they can endure the bombardment we subject them to. We have our food rations for 5 days. 3 musette bags, 4 litres of wine and water, and plenty of bread. I can tell you last night, as we went up the line, the shoulders felt the weight, along with the 250 cartridges and grenades. At this point, you're probably wondering, where is the other soldier, Jules? Well, actually, on the 1st of September, he was 150 kilometres away from Verdun and was actually struggling to get back from leave, which was not an uncommon problem for many French soldiers. So, where was Jules precisely? Well, he was currently at a railway station where he wrote some simple words. We are going to V. It's not a bad place to get back into the swing of things. Whilst Jules was looking to get back into the swing of things, 500 metres ahead of the 315 on the front lines at Verdun near Thionmont, the 102nd Infantry was in the front lines. Here's a quote from one of the captains on the 1st of September 1916. My command post consists of a shell hole in the mud, which myself and my orderly are huddled in, with shells falling around us, which create giant geysers of mud. One shell brushed me as it fell and buried itself near my feet. It caused an explosion of mud, and with it appeared a German Bavarian officer, half decomposed. with a green face to match his uniform. I found myself staring at this corpse for a second, until the mud from the explosion came back down and he disappeared again into the ground. 3rd of September. Jules is now back with the regiment and waiting at Froidterre, along with Hervé Lambert. They don't have to wait too long. At 4 o'clock on the 3rd of September, they receive orders. Their company is to go and support the 102nd Regiment that is attacking at Fleury. Before leaving, both had time to quickly write notes back home. Here's an extract from Hervé. Just a few lines will be enough, as always, to give you some news. They are excellent, despite our location surrounded by shrapnel. Nobody has any idea of what goes on here. There are scary sights in front of us. However, I won't tell you any more. If you are a few days without any news, don't worry. It's likely that letters take longer than normal to arrive. Hervé. At 5 o'clock, the 14th Company left for their new positions with Jules and Hervé. They had to go 1 kilometre uphill along the Ravin des Vignes, ominously nicknamed the Ravin de la Mort, the Ravine of Death. It was called the Ravine of Death for good reason. As Jules and Hervé went uphill, they came under heavy German artillery fire. Hervé wrote home about this action the next day, and he said, "We had at all costs to cross the Ravine of Death. The artillery barrage that the Boche had started 2 days ago did not want to slow down, so off we went up the slope with courage. We ran as best we could. Men were falling here and there, wounded and killed. But we were still running. We were breathless. Our hearts then sank when we eventually arrived on the hill and saw our new positions were just several shell holes. But at least we were safe." It's clear from Hervé's account that Jules had actually just come back in the nick of time to face this harsh reality of Verdun. As he'd predicted earlier, he really did arrive back just to get into the swing of things. At the same time, he also earned his first regimental citation during this action on the evening of the 3rd of September. 4th of September. Jules and Hervé are still near Fleury, supporting the 102nd. It's not until 8 o'clock in the evening that they are ordered back down to Froidterre. During the day, they still have a bit of time to actually write. Jules says, "I don't know if we'll be here long. I don't think so. But I will have much to tell you later. I have not written to your cousin. Please convey my apologies. But I've lost everything. I have no paper to write with. I lost my bag and half my belongings." Hervé, a couple of lines from the trenches and the mass graves where we are. As for the view I have in front of me, it's overwhelming. Corpses are touching one another, piled up on top of each other, with a smell of decomposing bodies that sticks in your throat. 5th of September. Both men are now back near Froidterre, around the fortification, but also at the same time at the Quatre Cheminées, the Four Chimneys shelter. Here again, both men had a day's rest. As much rest as really you could get near the front lines at Verdun and being constantly bombarded. That evening, on the 5th of September, they went back into the front lines, now in front of the fortification of Thionville. Before leaving, however, both men decided to write a couple of lines home. Jules, I have found time to write. As I told you, it's awful what we're going through here, and it's for 9 days without any rest. Until now, everything is fine. I am tired. I have not caught anything. We spend the nights and the days in the rain. without anything to eat, so imagine how clean we are. No shelters, even in reserve. Nothing lasts long here. The safest place is in a shell hole. Hervé. Yesterday we came back from Fleury. We made a huge effort there. Over here it's not too bad. In my squad of 9 there are 4 of us left. All the others are wounded, so you can imagine what is left. To leave this sector we need to have at least 60% casualties, but amongst those losses the majority of ours are just wounded. The terrain is so churned up by shell holes that you could put a large bus in a crater. I will shut my mouth for now. Big hugs, Hervé. 6th of September. The 14th Company, with Jules and Hervé, are waiting in front of the fortification of Thionville. They're waiting because the 315 today is going to be attacking. It won't be them, but it will be 4 companies to their right, and they will have a grandstand view of this. But before they could see this attack unfold at 1700 hours, there was a 9-hour bombardment beforehand. Jules wrote, "We suffered a heavy bombardment that lasted 9 hours. At times I thought I'd seen my final hour." The attack had marginal success. 56 men were killed, including 1 captain and 2 sous-lieutenants. There are 102 wounded and 28 missing at the end of the day. Regimental Commander Colonel Devaux then wrote up his report of the day's action. The soldiers carried out the attack with an energy and a spirit that cannot be reproached, but the enemy put up a resistance that was all the more fierce as it was composed of fresh troops. Be that as it may, all the officers showed the finest example of composure and courage. The 3 company commanders were out of action, but the men still fought with heroism. After the limited success of the 6th, the 315 would attack again on the 8th of September. Jules wrote, "Still the same hell here. The weather has been good for 2 days. We are fortunate because the sun feels good, but in the daytime we have to hide. Means lying on the ground because of enemy planes. At night we can walk a little bit, but at the moment the nights are cold. Here very soon there will be nobody left in the company. I have never seen anything as horrific as here. Jules." For Hervé, the 8th would be a chaotic day. As he wrote, "Nearly all the corporals are wounded. The head of the section passed on the command of the 7th squad to me. He then ordered me to be on watch at 1400 in the afternoon. Shells were falling all around me. There were many wounded. Then, at 4 o'clock, my sergeant was hit by an exploding shell. His leg was ripped off by shrapnel, together with a head wound. Nobody wanted to touch him. Everyone was afraid of his injuries. Therefore, I called over a mate that looked strong and asked for a bandage and a tent, and then we tried to move him. We had not moved more than 10 metres when a shell fell just where we had been previously." That sergeant was Lambert. Despite Hervé's heroic efforts, he would die the next day, aged 38. 9th of September. This was now the 9th day in the trenches for the 315. And trenches is a loose term here, as largely it was shell holes connected together to form a front line. It had been a calm day in comparison to the 8 previous ones. Hervé himself had just been evacuated with a foot injury, and Jules was starting to show the strain of battle. Jules writes, "We've just spent a day under heavy bombardment. We have sustained huge losses. A third of the company is already missing. What carnage. And often we cannot take away the wounded. They have to stay there for hours. waiting for another shell that will finish them off, or the end of the artillery barrage to retrieve them. The morale's now at a low ebb, mentally and physically, but there were still 3 more days for the regiment to last on the front lines at Verdun. By the time they would come down, the soldiers would have been changed by their experience.